Over the next 2 years, we're getting a wave of titles that are pushing realism to a whole new level. I'm not talking about flashy trailers or exaggerated hype. These are games where the graphics make you stop mid-play just to admire the detail. So today, we're counting down 20 upcoming realistic graphics games of 2026 and 2027. Let's dive in and see what's on the horizon.
Oh, my John.
When you think of realism in games, Wolverine isn't the first hero that comes to mind, but Insomniac is clearly aiming to change that. The footage we've seen shows Logan in a world that feels heavy, grounded, and lived in. It's not stylized comic panels, it's gritty bars, rain-slick streets, and character models that look like they belong in a film. The claws glint like real steel, and the animations carry weight, making every slash feel physical. What's cool is how Insomniac balances cinematic polish with subtle details, like the way light bounces off Logan's jacket, or how his expressions shift mid-fight. It's realism that doesn't scream, "Look at me," but instead quietly convinces you this world exists. And that's why fans are hyped, because it's not just about playing Wolverine, it's about believing him.
Because I ain't no hero. I'm Wolverine.
The first Atomic Heart was already a visual trip, but the sequel looks like it's doubling down on realism in the strangest way. The robots, the labs, the Soviet-inspired architecture, all of it is rendered with such sharp detail that the bizarre designs feel disturbingly believable. It's the kind of game where you stop mid-battle just to stare at the reflections in a corridor or the grime on a wall. The lighting is cinematic, the textures are dense, and the environments feel like they've been lived in for decades. That's what makes the surreal enemies hit harder, because when a mechanical creature looks this lifelike, your brain treats it as real. It's not just spectacle, it's immersion. And honestly, that's what makes Atomic Heart 2 stand out. It's weird, but it's weird in a way that feels possible. Kojima's OD is shaping up to be one of those games that makes you uncomfortable not because of what's happening, but because of how real it looks. The facial animations are uncanny. When a character whispers, screams, or even just stares, it feels like they're right there in the room with you. Shadows stretch unnaturally, but they're lit in a way that tricks your brain into believing them. The environments aren't flashy, they're minimal but hyper-detailed, with lighting that makes every corner feel alive. Kojima's always blurred the line between cinema and games, but here he's leaning into realism as a tool for horror. It's not about jump scares, it's about atmosphere, about making you squirm because your brain can't separate game from reality. And that's exactly why people are curious. It's realism used to mess with your head. No Law is one of those titles where realism isn't about beauty, it's about grit. The streets look dirty, the neon signs flicker like they're about to die, and every character looks worn down by the world they live in. It's not polished perfection, it's believable decay. You can almost feel the weight of the weapons, the torn clothes, the rain hitting the pavement. The realism here makes the chaos feel grounded. When you're carving your own path in a lawless society, the visuals convince you this world could exist. And that's the fun of it. It's not trying to impress with shiny graphics, it's trying to immerse you in a hostile environment. The detail is subtle but effective, and it's the kind of realism that makes you lean forward and think, yeah, this place feels dangerous.
You reap what you sow.
Blood Message is NetEase's first big push into single-player AAA territory, and what makes it stand out is how it uses realism to pull you into its historical setting. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the game drops you into the chaos of the Shaju uprising during the Tang Dynasty, following a messenger and his son as they travel across East and Central Asia. The environments aren't just pretty, they're textured with history. Cities look weathered, battlefields feel brutal, and landscapes carry the kind of detail that convinces you they've been lived in for centuries. You'll notice how dust floats in the air of a ruined temple, how armor reflects light naturally, and how faces carry subtle expressions that make characters feel human. It's realism used to amplify tension, because when the world looks this convincing, the stakes feel heavier. The game isn't about cheap spectacle, it's about immersion, about making you believe you're part of a desperate journey through a dangerous time. That's what makes Blood Message one of the most intriguing upcoming titles.
Anya, 等着我。是对信使。
The remake of Lara's very first adventure is less about nostalgia and more about showing how far realism in games has come. The jungles aren't just green backdrops, they're layered with foliage density, shifting shadows, and wildlife that reacts naturally. Ruins look weathered, with cracks and moss that feel like they've been there for centuries. Even Lara herself is rendered with subtle details, sweat, dirt, and micro-expressions that make her feel human rather than a digital model. What makes this remake exciting isn't just reliving the old puzzles, it's experiencing them in a world that feels tangible. You'll notice how dust floats in beams of sunlight inside tombs, or how water ripples realistically when she dives in. It's realism used to make exploration feel like actual discovery, and that's what makes this one stand out.
Some legends are destined to be retold.
Project TAL is one of the most ambitious upcoming RPGs out of Korea, and what makes it stand out is how it blends folklore with cutting-edge realism. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the game reimagines traditional TAL masks, symbols of Korean culture, and turns them into the centerpiece of a sprawling open-world action RPG. The environments are breathtaking. Dense forests where sunlight filters through the leaves, temples that look handcrafted with centuries of wear, and villages that feel like they've been lived in. Even the massive monsters you'll face carry weight and texture that make them believable despite their mythic origins. The realism here isn't just about pretty visuals, it's about grounding fantasy in detail so sharp it convinces you this world could exist. You'll notice how fog rolls across valleys, how shadows stretch naturally across battlefields, and how the masks themselves look like authentic artifacts. That's the magic of Project TAL. It takes something deeply cultural and makes it immersive, believable, and cinematic. With a planned release in 2027 for PC and PlayStation 5, this is one of those titles that could redefine how realism and mythology collide in games. Housemarque has always thrived on chaos, but Saros takes that chaos and wraps it in visuals that feel cinematic. The sci-fi environments are sharp, with corridors and landscapes lit in ways that make them feel oppressive and alive. The realism here isn't about making things pretty, it's about making them feel heavy. When bullets fly and enemies swarm, the detail in the world makes the chaos hit harder. Smoke curls realistically, reflections bounce off metallic surfaces, and particle effects blend seamlessly into the environment. It's the kind of game where you'll pause mid-fight just to notice how light flickers across a wall or how debris scatters after an explosion. That's what makes Saros stand out. It's realism used to heighten intensity, making every fight feel cinematic.
Which reduce your maximum armor integrity, but you can restore it by using your power weapon. Weapons and artifacts also become corrupted, which alters them in both positive and negative ways, which ramps up the challenge.
Bond games have always leaned into style, but First Light is aiming for realism that feels cinematic. Exotic locations look like they were filmed on set, with lighting and textures that make every scene feel like a movie. Character models carry subtle expressions, nervous glances, confident smirks that sell the espionage vibe. The realism here isn't about flashy spectacle, it's about polish. Sneaking through a high security compound feels believable because the environments look like they could exist. Crowded city streets, luxury casinos, and remote hideouts are all rendered with detail that makes immersion effortless. It's the kind of realism that makes the fantasy of being Bond feel grounded, and that's exactly what fans want. Immersion without the gloss.
Agents have very short life expectancy. And if you do get caught, we will deny ever having heard of you. How does that sound?
When do I start?
Star Wars has always been about spectacle, but this entry leans into realism to make the galaxy feel lived in. Alien worlds aren't just colorful, they're textured, weathered, and believable. Cities look like they've been inhabited for centuries, ships carry scratches and wear, and environments feel like they've been shaped by history. Lightsabers glow with cinematic precision, but it's the subtle details, the way dust kicks up in a duel, or how reflections bounce off metallic surfaces that make it convincing. The realism grounds the fantasy, so even when you're fighting across alien landscapes, your brain buys into it. That's the magic here. It's Star Wars, sharper, heavier, and more immersive than ever. This one takes Arthurian legend and drops it into a fractured modern London, and the realism is what makes the concept click. The city isn't just a backdrop, it's rendered with the kind of detail that makes you feel like you're walking those streets. Cracked pavement, rain-slick alleys, and neon signs all blend with mythical Avalon rising from the Thames. The contrast between gritty realism and fantasy is what makes it stand out. You'll notice how the lighting shifts naturally between modern and mythical zones, and how every environment feels like it has history. It's realism used to make the impossible believable, and that's why it's so intriguing.
My quarrel lies not with you, but I will take back everything that belongs to me. Even if the price is my soul.
Toshihiro Nagoshi's Gang of Dragon is basically a love letter to Shinjuku's Kabukicho, but with a crime drama twist. The realism here is in the details. The neon lights reflecting off puddles, the crowded streets, the way characters carry themselves. It's not stylized, it's gritty and grounded. Ma Dong-suk's presence adds weight, and the environments feel like they've been lived in. You can almost smell the street food and hear the buzz of nightlife. That's the kind of realism that makes immersion effortless. You're not just playing a crime drama, you're stepping into one. Following up Black Myth Wukong, Zhong Kui is all about realism applied to myth. The demon hunter himself looks lifelike, with armor and weapons rendered in painstaking detail. The environments, temples, mountains, battlefields, carry textures that make them feel tangible. Even the demons, as surreal as they are, have weight and presence that makes them believable. Lighting plays a huge role here, with shadows stretching naturally and fire flickering realistically. It's realism used to ground fantasy, and it makes every fight feel cinematic. Remedy's Control Resonant expands the universe into paranatural Manhattan, and the realism is what makes the surreal elements hit harder. The city looks like a real place, skyscrapers, streets, and interiors rendered with sharp detail. But when reality bends, the contrast makes it unsettling. Dylan Faden's journey feels grounded because the environments are so convincing. You'll notice reflections in glass, the way light bounces off surfaces, and the subtle wear in buildings. It's realism used to make the supernatural believable, and that's what makes it stand out. THQ Nordic's Fatekeeper is a dark fantasy RPG where realism is used to make the world feel heavy. Castles look weathered, forests feel dense, and characters carry detail that makes them lifelike. The melee and magic combat is enhanced by visuals that make every swing and spell feel physical. It's not about flashy effects, it's about grounding the fantasy in believable detail. You'll notice how environments feel handcrafted, with textures that make exploration immersive. It's realism used to make lore feel tangible, and that's what makes Fatekeeper compelling. Catalyst feels like the natural evolution of Lara's journey, but what really stands out is how realism is used to make the setting feel alive. Northern India isn't just a backdrop, it's a world rendered with dense jungles, towering temples, and landscapes that look like they've been shaped by centuries of history. The lighting captures the warmth of sunsets over mountains, while interiors of ruins feel damp, claustrophobic, and textured with detail. Lara herself is more human than ever, with subtle animations that show fatigue, determination, and vulnerability. It's realism that doesn't just make the game look good, it makes the adventure feel believable, like you're actually trekking through a dangerous, mythical land. Pythia's the Godslayer takes the idea of realism and applies it to a steampunk fantasy world. The brass machines, celestial gods, and sprawling cities are all rendered with textures that make them feel tangible. You'll notice gears turning with weight, steam rising naturally, and environments that look handcrafted rather than designed. The realism here makes the fantastical elements hit harder, because when a god descends from the sky, the world around you convinces you it could happen. It's not about flashy effects, it's about grounding the impossible in believable detail. That's what makes the Godslayer compelling. It's fantasy that feels like it could exist just beyond our reach. Woochi the Wayfarer is inspired by Korean folklore, and the realism is what makes it stand out. The Joseon-era setting is rendered with detail that makes every village, temple, and forest feel authentic. Clothing looks handcrafted, weapons carry weight, and environments feel like they've been lived in. The realism here isn't about spectacle, it's about immersion. When Woochi casts spells or fights enemies, the grounded detail in the world makes the fantasy believable. It's the kind of game where you'll pause just to admire the way lanterns flicker in the wind or how rain hits rooftops. That's the power of realism. It makes folklore feel tangible. CD Projekt Red is returning with The Witcher 4, and realism is at the heart of it. Built on Unreal Engine 5, the environments are sharper, denser, and more atmospheric than ever. Forests feel alive with shifting light, cities look weathered and inhabited, and characters carry micro-expressions that make them feel human. With Ciri stepping into the protagonist role, the realism adds weight to her journey. Every duel, every conversation, every exploration feels grounded. It's not about flashy effects, it's about making the world of The Witcher feel tangible. That's what makes this entry exciting. It's fantasy rendered with a realism that convinces you it could exist.
She went to go to the woods. The chosen one. His tradition.
Oh no, no, no.
It's all we wanted. For her to go to the woods. To go to the gods.
Gods?
There are no gods here. There are only monsters.
Rockstar's GTA 6 is the crown jewel of realism. Set in Vice City's Leonida, the environments look so sharp and detailed that they feel like real places. Streets are crowded with lifelike NPCs, sunsets bleed across the skyline, and interiors carry the kind of detail you'd expect from a film set. Jason and Lucia's story is grounded in a world that feels alive. Cars reflect light naturally, rain hits pavement with convincing texture, and every corner looks like it's been lived in. It's realism used not just to impress, but to immerse. That's why GTA 6 is the most anticipated. It's not just a game, it's a world you believe in.
Come to Field's Ammunition today.
And that's the lineup. 20 upcoming games across 2026 and 2027 that are pushing realism to the next level. So, which one are you most excited to see in action? Drop your pick in the comments, and let's see which game the community thinks will set the new standard for realism. If you enjoyed this countdown, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next deep dive. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll catch you in the next one.